Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming here today. My name is Aziz, and I am a member of the Software Engineering and Analysis Lab at UCI. And today I'd like to give you an overview of our paper, Accessibility Issues in Android Apps. But before we begin, let's consider this scenario. So imagine that you wanted to send money to a friend and you decided to use your bank app. So you downloaded the app and then you saw this. All you see is just button one, button two, and button three, and they all have the same icons and the same labels, which is confusing. So the only way to navigate the app is just trial and error. So you would click on each one of these elements until you find the page that you want. Now, this is a much better version of the UI with labels that clearly define what each button does. Now, this is an example of what a blind person would experience when using an app that is not accessible. The idea here is that blind people use a screen reader to interact with their phones, and a screen reader, as the name suggests, would just read what's on the screen. So if what's on the screen is an icon, it needs to have an alternative text or label. For example, for this icon, the label is the word help. And if it's not there, then the screen reader would just say button one or button two, which doesn't help at all. This is similar to what we experienced on the previous slide. And this specific issue is called missing speakable text. And it's one of the issues that we look at in this paper. Now, the motivation for this work revolves around the fact that apps play an important role in the daily life of people, and having a good understanding about accessibility is important to both developers and users, especially when we know that more than 1 billion have some form or type of disabilities, and this is more than 15% of the world population. Our study is based on the Google official Android accessibility guidelines, which include 11 accessibility issues. I have already explained the first issue in the example at the beginning of this presentation, and unfortunately, due to time constraint, I'll not be able to go through the remaining ones, but you can read more about them in the paper. So our goal in this work is to understand the state of accessibility in Android apps through a large empirical study, and we look at the accessibility issue from three different perspectives: the apps, users, and developers. So we realized that a holistic view would give us a much better understanding of the issue. So the first perspective, which is the apps, we have evaluated the accessibility of more 1,000 apps, and we have developed our own custom tool to automate the different steps required to test the app's accessibility. So this is an overview of the tool that we built. And the first component or first step is the interaction with the app. And the goal here is just to crawl the different screens on the app. Next, we have the listener. So the listener is a service-only app that is running on the background to monitor everything that is happening on the screen. And every time a button is clicked or screen is opened, it retrieves all the UI elements that are visible to the user, and then it performs the accessibility checks on all these elements. Lastly, we have the analyzer. So for each app, we collect the package name, activity name, and other information. And the main thing here is that we calculate the inaccessibility rate for each app. For the second perspective in our study, which is the users, we wanted to know how users are impacted by the accessibility issues. And for this, we collected all the reviews for all the apps in our data set, and we filtered the reviews that discussed accessibility. The third perspective in our study is the app developers. So we wanted to get a deeper understanding of why developers create apps with or without accessibility issues. So we sent an online survey to Android developers, and we asked about their practice of using the guidelines and the tools they use for assessing accessibility. We also asked them about any challenges based on their experience. Now we move on into the results of this study. So we have 9 research questions in the study. They cover the different perspectives that we discussed before, which is apps, developers, and users. And unfortunately, due to time constraints, we're only going to go through one question for each perspective. So let's start with the first perspective, which is the apps. So in this RQ, we try to find the most common types of accessibility issues. This table shows that 10 out of 11 issues that we considered are present in apps, and we can clearly see that some issues are more common than others, like the first four in the table. So we investigated that and we looked at a couple of things, including Android Studio templates. So Android Studio is the official IDE for building apps in Android, and developers sometimes use those templates that are provided by Android Studio to build their apps. So we analyzed those templates and we found that 5 out of 10 templates provided by Android Studio suffer from different accessibility issues. For instance, a screen built using this tabbed activity template has 2 issues. So we think that the presence of these issues may have contributed to the high number of some of the accessibility issues in Android apps. Now, for the second perspective, which is the developers, we wanted to get a better understanding of why developers create apps with or without accessibility issues. And this question was based on the developer survey that we sent. And as you can see from the chart, the top reason for people or for developers creating apps with accessibility issues is lack of awareness. And this includes not knowing what accessibility means in general or how to apply it. The other top reasons are additional cost and also lack of support from management, as they wanted to deliver products faster. Now, in the last perspective, which is the users, this question is based on the reviews we collected from Google Play, and it's about the accessibility issues that users complain about. So in almost half of the reviews, users discussed accessibility without specifying the exact issue. For the other half, they discussed issues related to text, image, or speakable text. We also found that users tend to use app reviews to communicate both positive and negative experiences with app accessibility. And in some cases, users gave a bad review and stated that they're going to delete the app as it was unusable to them. For the implications of this study, so the main thing here is that accessibility issues are common in apps, and this affect individuals with different kinds of disability. The second thing is that organizations need to pay attention to accessibility because most of the survey respondents, they told us that they did not have any accessibility evaluation as part of their app development process, and also that accessibility is not treated as importantly as other aspects of quality such as security. This also applies to individual developers as well. We also found that existing tools are limited and could be improved to better support accessibility. And in general, any improvement in this domain could be helpful to both users and developers. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for your time.